Hi and greetings. I'm coming back to you with another video where I'm on camera, and this is just going to be a short, really short video. This video is more going to be a testimony slash message. Anyway, I just want to make this video to share with you something that happened yesterday afternoon. A relative of mine, he was coming in from, I think he lives in Florida. He was coming in visiting. He had a class reunion that he was attending, and he wanted to see me, before going to the class reunion. He let me know the hotel where he was staying at, where he and his wife were staying. And so I dropped in to see them yesterday, and we had a conversation. His wife stayed for a little while and talked with us, but then it was he and I, it was mainly him and I having a conversation. But anyway, what I wanted to share, it was a conversation I had with him and his wife. Somehow we got on. Yes, this is how it happened. Now, before, when he called me to say that he was going to be at this hotel and he would like for us to meet, this maybe a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me when he was going to be here, and he said he was going to be here the Friday and everything, and the Saturday and everything. And then he said, well, Sunday he didn't want to. He thought that I probably had was going to church Sunday, so he figured Sunday wouldn't be a good day. But then I told him, I said no. I said Sunday, won't be a problem. I can meet Sunday. And I said, in the Sabbath, I said I keep the Sabbath. And so I noticed that he got quiet. So then when we met up yesterday, he had said that when we talked on the phone, you had said, he was talking to me, you had said that you keep the Sabbath, and he was surprised because he knew that the that he thought that I was a traditional Christian, like how my parents brought me. He thought I was in the same religion as my parents. And then he had mentioned that when we met up, and he was taken by surprise when I said that I keep the Sabbath. And then I told him, I said, no, I'm no longer in the faith that I was brought up in, by my parents. And then, of course, he's a curious type, so he wanted to know why am I no longer in that faith? And honestly, I wasn't able to. How can I say it? I didn't expound like I wanted to. A lot of times when people may catch you off guard, you're not expecting that question. Sometimes you don't give the answer that you know, will want to give when you go off later on and think about it. Oh, I should have said, oh, I could have said that. There's a scripture that says, always be ready to give reason for the hope that is within you. So I'm still learning that, to always be ready to give that answer when someone asks me, well, why did you believe this? Why did you believe that? But anyway, I had told him, well, the reason why, I'm no longer in the same religion my parents were in. I said, because after a time, I started having questions about my people, black people, why we were going through the things that we were going through, why it looked like we took 2 steps forward and take 10 steps back. We just couldn't get ahead. We going through all these things, and yet I was looking for a divine answer, divine reason. And the faith that I was in, it was not giving me those answers. So I had to look elsewhere. And then I told him, I did research. And that's when I found the answers that I was looking for. And then what I told him and his wife, and both of them. And then I said, have you ever heard of the Hebrew Israelites? And then they said yes, and I saw the expression. I said, well, I knew right then it wasn't good, but I had to put a separation. I said, I don't consider myself a Hebrew Israelite. I don't call myself that name. But as far as like living according to the scriptures and knowing that I'm an Israelite, I'm of that belief. But anyway, they told me that well, he told me that his wife she encountered some Hebrew Israelites, and she had a conversation with them. And then she was, they was going back and forth. It was a more of a, I guess, a dispute with them. And she was trying to tell them that, because see, these relatives of mine, they're Seventh-day Adventists. So they keep the Sabbath and they keep the Levitical law, Levitical diet, according to, how it says in Leviticus. So to a certain degree, they do keep, the Torah to a certain extent. But she was saying how the conversation she was having with these Hebrew Israelites, that they want to keep the ceremonial part of the law, to the letter. They want to keep the law to the letter, the Torah to the letter. And she was explaining to them how, she said Christ. See, we're now under Christ, so we're no longer under the bondage of the law. She said, yes, we keep the dietary part of the law and the Sabbath and all of that, but as far as like the ceremonial part, we no longer have to keep that. We're no longer bound to the law. And that's the part that a lot of these letter keeping Hebrew Israelites, they are missing. We're not, and she was right. We're not under that that part of the law where we have to make the sacrifices and do all of the ceremonies, because the Messiah, he is our sacrifice. He was the supreme sacrifice. When he died on the stake, or Christians say the cross, he was the ultimate supreme sacrifice. So we no longer have to keep that part of the law. That's why Apostle Paul says we are no longer under the law, but we're under grace. And that's the part that they miss. But anyway, but it just made me feel some kind of way that I actually had to distance myself. I told him, I said, I'm not part of those mad men that are preaching and yelling at the white folks on the street and yelling, racial, making racial comments and racial insults, hurling racial insults to the white people walking by, and also hurling insults, at misogynistic insults at the women. I'm not of that sect. But the idea that I had to separate myself made me feel some kind of way. And see, and that's why you have these people, like the scripture says, causing the name of the Most High to be ill and evil spoken of. They put a bad name on this Israelite way. And it hurt me that, that I had to separate myself. But believe me, I separated myself. And anyway, I was I just wanted to share that. And I was just thinking about how, these men on the streets, to me, they are a cross between the Pharisees and the Zealots. Now, I don't know if you ever heard of the Zealots, but the Zealots was a sect of Israelites who fought against, this was during ancient times, who called themselves trying to fight against the world ruling power at that time, which was the Roman Empire. And they were, because of course then Rome was oppressing, Israel and the Israelites. So they called themselves trying to fight against the Roman power. So they were called the Zealots. And anyway, and you have a lot of these street preachers, these Israelite preachers on the corner, yelling at the white man, saying how, well, we gonna rule you and unalive you, and when the Messiah comes back. So that's that zealous spirit, the spirit of the zealots. Where they're like the Pharisees and the Sadducees is where they try to keep the law to the letter. So that's why I see them as a Pharisee/zealot. Yeah, but anyway, that was I just want to share that interesting conversation I had with, my relatives. And I just see the importance, how it is to properly represent the Most High and to shine our righteous light. And as it says in the scriptures, let your light so shine before men, so that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. And that's the kind of servant that I want to be. I want to be one that will cause people to have more of a respect, for the Most High. They see me, they see, okay, well, she's a righteous person. She's walking upright. She's doing right. And not be one to bring shame on the Most High's name. And that's what it happened, that's what's happening with a lot of these so-called Hebrew Israelite street preachers. When they do the things that they do and when they say the things that they say, they're bringing shame to the Most High's name. But it's by design. A lot of those men on the streets, they're agents. They're paid agents, doing what the powers that be wants them to do. Because you think about it, all this harassing they're doing, and the police, they're never arrested by the police. Why is that? A lot of them are agents. They are tools being used to help undermine this awakening. The devil always has his devices, and they are one of his devices. But they will fail. The adversary, his plan is going to fail eventually. In the long run, his plan is going to fail. But anyway, I just wanted to share that quick testimony and quick message, just to show how important it is to righteously represent the Most High, and not let your bad conduct cause the Most High's name, Yahuwah's name, to be evil and ill spoken of. But anyway, that's my message, and I pray that you all continue to be blessed. And if you're watching this video on my YouTube channel, I ask that you please like, share, and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment. Be blessed.